Vignett's corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises! It just had to be! Dack's corner and it goes, Glance towards goal! And Rovers have taken the lead! And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Good evening, Rovers fans, and welcome back to our post-match live stream. After a 2-week break that we had, we're back live post-match to dissect not the most inspiring game as Rovers drew 1-1 with Stoke, which in the circumstances we will take a point, but certainly lots and lots of questions still overhang this Rovers side after that result. We suspect it's going to be a busy one tonight, so please do keep interacting with us through this evening with your comments, with your views, with your thoughts about where it's going right for Rovers, where it's going wrong for Rovers, what we need to do. We will pick them up through the show as we usually do. As you can see, I am joined again by my strike partner, Joe, Rovers Analytics. How are you doing, Joe?
Not too bad. I mean, I guessed 1-1 before the start of the game, and 1-1's the result we've got, so I guess I can't be too disappointed because it's what I expected.
Yep, you're doing well in the prediction league, so more points for you. And we've got Glenn and Tom with us. Glenn, how are you doing today, mate?
Frustrated again. I think, like Joe said, I had a fiver on Armstrong first goal, so you know how the day's going to go then, don't you?
Well, that certainly does feature in the talking points, and we have got a screen grab of the decision, which, we will pick up as a major talking point of the game, that's for sure. And Tom, how are you feeling after that, mate?
A bit deflated, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not. I'll save my thoughts for the questions and the rest of the live stream, because I think I've got quite a bit to say, so I won't go over it too much. These introductory things here.
Indeed. Before we go to the sponsors' message, just to pick up some of the initial comments that we've had. So Denver Green, Hyle shocking on the pitch again, including the pitch itself. That needs resurfacing ASAP. Yeah, we'll certainly talk about the pitch, Denver. Newman Ali, only positive is that none of the players put themselves in the shop window with that performance. Michael Pearson, definitely a point gained, only turned up to play for the last 20 minutes. Scott Taylor, awful, awful, awful. FM Works, we played like the pitch, shocking, no real determination, and we have to ask ourselves, has Mowbry lost the dressing room? And then Callum Robinson with a question to you, Joe. Could you start expecting some wins for us, Joe? So maybe you'll turn us into a good luck charm.
It's all my fault.
That's it. Rovers fans, as ever, if you do want to be on the show tonight, then hit a DM to the Rovers Chat Twitter account and you can come and join us on the panel like what the likes of FM Works and others have done with us. So send a message across to Dan and we will bring you in. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it is Rovers Chat on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button as we go towards 1,000 subscribers. And if you're not following us on Twitter, we are Rovers_chat on Twitter. But before we start, we will just give our message from our proud sponsors, 6yardsout.com.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
Really, really busy in the comments. They're going to struggle to keep up with these tonight, I suspect. So I will do my best as I go through. So if I don't get your comment, then post it again and we will pick it up. So as we usually do at the start of the show, it's just a brief summary on how you felt the game went and some thoughts. So Tom, I'll come to you first if I can, mate. Just summarise your views on the game and how you think it went.
Flat, terrible. The pitch echoed the performance. Just there wasn't much really. They didn't offer anything in the way of a threat, attacking threat. until the 75th minute, 70th minute. I know, Joe, we spoke a bit in the chat at the time. I'm sure you're going to go into that. The formation was all wrong. Just everything was bad. Everything about the performance just screamed lackluster. I was really disappointed. I felt quite confident coming into it. Don't know why after the Doncaster performance. Guess that bug catches you every time, doesn't it? But it wasn't good enough, and I'm really, really disappointed, to be honest with you. And I'm not too sure where we can go from here.
No, it was certainly a flat performance, and I was quite surprised with Stoke actually, because I think we spoke on the pre-match stream about the approach that Stoke might take, and obviously the previous game at the Bet365. Actually, from the first whistle, they looked on it from the off, and they pressed us, and they looked sharper, and just wanted it a bit more, didn't they? And you could see that really on in the game, and I think the word flat, Tom, is a really good summary of that. Glenn, I know that you do try and inject some positivity into all things Rovers, so this might be a deep dredge for you today. You know, how are you feeling?
I think, ask me at half time, you get a completely different response to now. I think, take the point. I mean, even when we equalised, even when they had the man sent off, the back of my head, I'm thinking, we can still lose this. It's only going to take a set piece. So I think the way we played for 70 minutes, you've got to be happy with a point. Yeah, it's frustrating given they played the last, 10, 15 with 10 men. But we're open to kind of capitulating when we are playing 10, committing too many forward. It's just that team on paper is good enough to beat anybody in this league. And I don't know if it's the system and the pitch isn't helping, but it just wasn't there today. I'm sure we'll talk about the offside later, so I'll save that. But yeah, I'm happier now than I was obviously at half time. But it's, I don't know, there's a sense of demoralisation in the second half of here we go again. We've conceded. How do we turn this around? But we got a point, so take the positives.
That's it. And there's certainly some comments in there that just saying, yeah, you know, we'll take the points. The leap year, man, we just about deserve the point, but we can't keep playing like that for only the 15, 20 minutes of the game. So yeah, you know, let's take the point and try and forget the affair. There's lots of questions in there about Tony Mowbry and his tenure at the club. Once I've asked Joe just his views on the game overall, we will come on to that, because I think it does feel like a tipping point has either been reached or possibly is close to being reached with the Rovers fans, just the things that I've seen on Twitter and things. So we will give that the airtime. So Joe, you know, sum up your thoughts on the game, mate. Where do you think it went wrong? How are you feeling? You know, what's your summary of that?
Well, yeah, I think it was wrong the way we set up at the beginning. I don't think we should have been playing a system just to suit a half-fit player that hasn't played for us for a year. Armstrong's got 17 goals this system in a 4-3-3. Why on earth we'd change that, I don't understand. You know, we had the personnel there. Brereton was obviously fit enough to play. There wasn't any need for the change. So I think Mowbray got it systemically wrong today. And I think got quite lucky with the Gallagher injury and was forced into bringing Brereton on. And I think we've somehow managed to get a point out of it. I'm usually quite a strong backer of Mowbray, but I think he got it wrong big time tonight.
Yeah, just chuckling in the comments. We obviously have a really good punditry panel on Rovers Chat. Seems to be a lot of love for Jacob Ward tonight and Howard. Howard will be back with us midweek for the live streams as he usually is. So don't worry, Howard will be back with us amongst some of our other guests. In terms of me and my summary on the game, as I say, I think Stoke started that game different to what I was expecting. I thought that they would possibly sit back a bit more, and they didn't. Matondo, I think, did give them a good outlet on that right all game, actually, and allowed them to get up the pitch a little bit as well. And I think Tom's summary of flat is right. I don't know if it's the pitch that was just, you know, meaning that we were taking too much touches on the ball. I don't know if, you know, some players are tired, like Dak and Travis just coming back into the side and not quite fully there. There was no cohesion, really. And I'm pleased, in a way, that we tried to get Dak and Travis in the side, because you've got to have your best players in this division, and they undoubtedly are two of our better players. But I think it's clear we just need to now just ease them back in and get a system that works for Rovers. Glenn, I'm going to come to you for this comment, or just to start this discussion. There's lots in the comments here. So if I go back, I think Ollie James is the first one who came in. So Ollie, been on the fence for a while now about Mowbray, but after today, I've had enough and I want him gone. They dominated the first 60 minutes. We played like the away side. We have no consistency or fluidity. Matt, been an admirer of Mowbray since he's come in, but today's performance is the first time that I'm questioning him as manager. T Mason 86, Mowbray seems out of ideas and getting desperate, playing unfit players and hoping for the best. And then Peter Wright, what's the four of your views on TM? So Peter, we're going to go into that now. As I say, Glenn, I am starting to see the tide turn on Mowbray now, just in terms of, we've said it on these streams, we've said it in all of the things that we did before the season started. Everything was gearing itself up for a good season for Rovers, with quite a lot of the things off the pitch in particular being stable and sorted, which it's the first time we can say that in a very long time. And then for the first time on the pitch, it probably felt like we had options, we had strength in depth. We've got the Championship's top goal scorer, unless Tony scored today, I've not seen. So it felt like a lot was right. So do you feel like that tipping point is now being reached, and Mowbray could be starting to be under some pressure if we don't start picking up some results?
I think he is under pressure. I don't think you can get away from that. You look at the comments in this chat, you look at Twitter, your social media. As soon as we go 1-0 down, you can see the kind of the revolt that's coming against it. And when we're so kind of lackluster as well, it doesn't help. You don't mind losing 1-0 if you've battered a team and it's just something's not dropped our way. Today, we didn't batter them. I think it frustrates me. You look back and like the Brentford game and that run before them, we looked like a team that couldn't lose. We had that drive, and I think I mentioned it on a stream. There's just something about us, so it's probably my fault. But we seem to have lost that now, where we don't look like creating anything, scoring anything. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, whether it's other teams have picked up how to play against us. But coming back to Mowbray, it's a tricky one. I've been Mowbray in all the way. I think I'm still Mowbray in. I think the results have to change, but the risk of changing is too great in terms of changing the manager now. I think my big problem with changing Mowbray is who's out there that you bring in. It's his players. It's kind of his system, which we're saying didn't really work today. But ultimately, for me, it's the pitch. You can bring any manager in with those players. Lewis Holtby in the middle. You've got Elliott. You've got Rothwell. All players that want the ball at the feet, that want to drive at players, that want to pass the ball around. You can't pass it 5 yards on that pitch. You're passing it around the back four, and every time we go from Lenihan out to Niambe or from Branthwaite out to Douglas, there's a heart-in-mouth moment of, is the ball going to get there? And I don't want to be critical of the groundsman, because I don't think it's the groundsman's fault. I think it's the quick turnaround in the summer. I don't think we've relayed the pitch. We've had the bad weather. I think it sounds like I'm making excuses for Mowbray. To an extent, I am. But it's because I think the risk's too great to change it now. I believe he's got till the end of 2022 on his contract. For me, let him see the contract out. Let's see where we get in a year. This year's a free hit. Yeah, we've got a great squad, but I think for both parties, an amicable, if it gets to that, departure at the end of the contract would be better than a sacking, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm going to come to Tom and Joe in a moment, but what you said there, Glenn, is like the overriding feeling that I've got at the moment. We've spoken a lot, again, about 14-15 season and how there was that gradual unravelling of the side when Jordan Rhodes left and other players left, and we ended up where we did in 16-17. For me, the greatest risk to this club at the moment is not Tony Mowbray. It's the fact that we've still got these contracts that need to be signed. We've still got a question mark over whether Adam Armstrong's going to be at the club longer term, etc., etc. So if we want to avoid a 14-15 situation from happening, why would you get rid of a manager that's provided the stability to us in a very uncertain world and when we've got no money at the moment and no cash flow? So for me, I would be sticking with Mowbray for those reasons, but that's not me sitting here saying Mowbray's going to get us top six, Mowbray's going to get us promoted, the football's amazing, he's the perfect man. Absolutely not. That's not me saying that, but it's the stability that he brings at this moment in time when we've got other variables at play in this club. And I do just think it would be a dangerous decision to sack him now, but I totally take on board everyone's points. It is frustrating and it's not proving the right football for us at the moment. So, Tom, I'm going to address some of the comments that we have had in here. And what I've seen labelled at Mowbray in some recent weeks is Mowbray appearing like he's not trying to affect things, sat on the bench, stuff like that. So there were some comments. Here we go. So I've got, Dan, if you're on the comments, Alexander Haven, got to be making things happen, got to be more proactive. Michael Pearson, Mowbray is seen slumped in his seat, started at the end of last season, should spend his time motivating. And then Wayne Redfern, I like Tony Mowbray, but why does he take so long to change the formation when it's clear it's not working? We're not good enough against most teams to have the attitude, this is how we play, disregarding the opposition. So do you share those views, Tom, that Mowbray maybe isn't proactive enough, he isn't barking orders at them enough, he isn't motivating them enough? You know, do you share that?
It's funny because I think prior to lockdown and football change, I always thought Mowbray was quite proactive with his subs. He seemed to make them relatively early compared to the likes of Boyer, who I know he always used to make his subs around the 75th minute, at which point the game seemed to have gone. But I do agree recently, for whatever reason, his changes haven't necessarily been coming at the right time. So I probably would go along with that recently. He does look defeated, to be honest. He is slumped in his chair. That's something we'd not seen when fans were at the ground. Whether that's because the fans sort of amped him up and it got him on his feet, I don't know. I think in this job you've got to be amped up no matter what. With regards to the original question, Mowbray or out, I'm very much on the precipice. I don't know. I think I saw a few comments saying that we're a bit of a crossroads with regards to Mowbray. And I think that's right. I think it's risk and reward. We could sack him, risk it all, bring someone in who lights it up. Use Damien Johnson's example. He comes in, lights everything up, and hello, we're looking at playoffs or whatever. Or sack him. It could be another Boyer where you bring in some chancellor like Lambert, and then we end up with someone like Coyle. And before we know it, we're back in League One. I don't know what the answer is, and I really wish that I did.
Yeah, it is a crossroads, and I think risk and reward is the right wording, Tom. I think it's dangerous, and it could, we could sack Mowbray and get a manager who gets us promoted, and then it's the right reward, isn't it? But I just think that there's too many risks of it going wrong, and let's look at the track record of the managers that we have appointed into the club. Are we trusting that to happen in the manner that we want it to happen again? And then there's the cost thing as well. I just can't see us affording sacking the manager, bringing in a new manager, and getting these new contracts signed. It still bothers me, that does. Joe, I'm going to come to you a bit more on the tactical side, the system side, because certainly in our private group chats, you were quite vocal about the system that we operated today. And again, there's certainly some comments within the comments here. About 5 minutes ago, we had a comment here from Pat Doherty. Maybe players have had enough of Tony Mowbray's systems. They don't look like they enjoy playing. The system today, I think, smacked of trying to get Dak and Travis into that side, didn't it? And do you think it worked today, the system, particularly first half that we played?
No, the system didn't work. I think, as I alluded to in my opening kind of comments on it, I think the system was wrong. That's not to say that Mowbray doesn't have systems that do work. I think the 4-3-3 system is fairly effective. We score those goals and we have those shots because it is effective, but for some reason we didn't play that system today, and I won't pretend to understand that reasoning, but I think he'll know full well that it didn't work, and I can't imagine we'll go back to it again. I think towards the end of the game we saw the box formation and it definitely suited us better. Freedom for those attacking players to actually get in the box. So yeah, started poorly. And I think through, luck and a little bit of tactical change, we did come into the game a bit better.
Yeah, and just building on that, we usually at this part of the show go in to talk about, players who played well and other things, but I'm going to do things slightly differently here. And Joe, you found this graphic, didn't you? You'll have to get the credit for me so that we do it service. The average positions that Rovers players had in the first half. Just give us who gave us this graphic?
Well, I don't actually know the original source of the graphic, to be honest. This is just nabbed from Twitter, so I won't give anybody credit because I think this is stolen from somewhere else as well. Okay. You can see there that it's disappointing, isn't it? Obviously, this is only the first half, and we do have a graphic for the end of game average positions, which do look a lot better. But the main thing on the second graphic here is that there is a system there. You can see what you're trying to achieve. There's almost an arrow there of players pointing in towards Adam Armstrong, it looks like a tactical system. Whereas the first one, if we can get that back up, Dan, that there's no system there. That is all over the shop. It's just Armstrong up top and everybody else filling in wherever they're needed. I think we saw a lot of, especially at throw-ins, Lenihan, Travis and Nyambe in that right back triangle pointing at each other saying, well, you're marking him and I'm marking him. And there was so much space because I don't think anybody knew where they were supposed to be. We haven't played a 4-2-3-1 for a calendar year. And the players just didn't take to it well at all and they didn't know where to go. When they hit the post, that came from Nyambe being well out of position. Because again, I just don't think it's a system they're used to. The responsibilities on fullbacks in a 4-2-3-1 are vastly different to the responsibilities on fullbacks in a 4-3-3. And to just change things overnight in that way, it was never going to end well. And that's shown by the formation change, showing a clear tactical direction come the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think something I take from that as well, Joe, I'll just stick with you before moving on. We started playing better in those final 20 minutes. Let's address the elephant in the room. Dak and Travis aren't on the pitch, are they? And we've got the system that the players are used to. We've got the personnel that the players are used to. And it just feels a bit more comfortable for them, doesn't it, at that point?
It's really hard, this, isn't it? Because we can sit here and dissect it, but for me, we just played the wrong system. I think if we'd have played the way we played in the last 15, regardless of a red card, we'd have won the game. So I don't want to say too much more on it because there's, in some ways, you can overcomplicate things, really. He just got it wrong. He just simply got it wrong.
Yeah. So we'll move on then. Tom, I'm going to come to you. Let's focus on players that might have played well today, but I'm going to just load this one to you instead. So Jared Branthwaite made his debut today. How do you think he got on?
Yeah, I thought he played really well, to be fair. There were incident very early on in the first half where there were about 3 players around him and he sort of managed to wiggle his way through and was able to recycle possession and just get it to safety, really. But to safety without necessarily punting it up the pitch. Which is always good to see. I thought he played well. Looks like he's going to be a solid addition. Would I rather have our own centre-halves there and not rely on the loan market, of course. But we're in this position that we're in due to injuries, and he seems to be, from the one game we've seen him in anyway, to have been quite a shrewd addition. Obviously, Everton rate him highly. He's had experience with Carlisle in League 2, would that have been? So he's not exactly a stranger to adult football in the same way that he had experience in the Prem at the back end of last season. So he seems physical, seems to have ability, travels with the ball well. Not quite Tosinada Rabayo, but like I said, looks to be a good addition in a position obviously we're sorely lacking at the moment.
Yeah, and Glenn, Branthwaite came in and Tom's given the assessment there on how well he did. How do you think he partnered up with Darragh Lenihan? How do you think Lenihan played today, etc.?
I know previously I've been critical of Lenihan and Ayala and their style of play and their ability to lose the head. I never felt like that today. I felt Lenihan seemed a lot more composed at the back. It helps having a left footer on the left side. Obviously got a bit of pace. Branthwaite loves the tackle, which I think is brilliant. There are a few times he's kind of got in, put it out for a throw in. Stuff we've maybe missed before in the past, just a bit of simple stuff. But yeah, I think he made us solid at the centre of the back. Like you mentioned, Nyambe was a little bit out of position in the first half. I thought Douglas was better again today. Better by way is he wasn't noticeable. That's probably the best way I could put it. I mean, I will criticise his free kick at the end. That was shocking to get the ball in the box. But I think defensively we looked better today. From open play, from set pieces was another question. But yeah, I was impressed with Branthwaite. I liked him. He reminded me of when we'd kind of go and pick up Michael Keane, for example, and he'd come straight in and he'd be competent there. He looked like he played there for weeks.
Yeah, he looked good. I was impressed with him as well, and he looked solid and looked like a player that gave Lenihan some confidence. That's the thing I noticed. So, as much as first half there were some defensively shaky things that happened, I'm not labelling those towards Branthwaite or Lenihan per se. We looked solid enough there, didn't we? So I think the problems were elsewhere on the pitch. So I like that as a partnership. I thought it looked good. And Joe, in terms of players that played well, we're probably clutching at straws a little bit to focus on that today. So we're probably going to go more into the talking points of the games and where it went wrong for Rovers, because I think that's where it where we merit that today. But one player I do just want to pick out, John Buckley. So I think if everyone is being honest with themselves, when that substitution was made and John Buckley came on, most people are probably going, why is Tyrese Dolan not coming on? So how pleased were you for John Buckley to get the equaliser today?
I was delighted when he came on because I was really disappointed with Bradley Dack again today. I thought he looked well off the pace and he's clearly not ready. I think he had about 5 touches in the whole game. And Buckley came on and he just looked the part. He spread the play well, 1 touch to control, 1 touch to pass. You know, if we had 11 John Buckleys out on the field, I don't think we'd have noticed the pitch. I don't think the pitch played a factor in John Buckley's play at all, which probably tells you a lot about his technical ability. Yes, there's questions about his physical ability, but I thought it was the right game for him to come on. Obviously, the goal's a tap-in, but, we saw Bradley Dack miss a tap-in last week, so you've still got to put it in the net and be in the right place. But I agree with that comment there from Hauser07 that it was Holtby that made the difference. Came on and was really impressive. He did everything in that kind of period that he was on that I want Bradley Dack to be doing. Especially the ball through to Brereton for the shot at the end. It was good. It was he was effective, and I thought Holtby, Davenport, and Buckley was the best midfield 3 we'd seen in the whole game. There was just drive there, and they wanted to move forward in possession. And Davenport was winning the ball back, and Holtby was finding the passes, and Buckley was getting into the box, and it was dynamic. And when compared to that Travis and Dack and Elliott and players with poor touches and clearly not up to speed. I thought it was a lot better in that second half.
And I think you're absolutely right to bring out Holtby and also the balance of the midfield, because this is what I was getting at to you at the start of the show when I'm talking about the personnel and the formation and the fact that Dack and Travis weren't on the pitch, etc., and Mowbray trying to force that. I've said on these streams before that when I think back of that good Liverpool side, back, I can't remember the year that it was, 05 or 06, around that time, Gerrard, Mascherano, Xabi Alonso were 3 different midfielders that complemented each other really well, because they could all, Mascherano could do the defensive side, which is what Davenport was doing for us today. Xabi Alonso could pick a pass and thread the balls through, which is a bit what Holtby was doing today. And then Steven Gerrard was the one that gets into the box, which is what John Buckley did today and got the goal. And so I think the balance of the midfield and these options that we've got is Mowbray's biggest problem now. He's got Rothwell, he's got Dack, he's got Travis, he's got Johnson, he's got Tribal, he's got Davenport. How the hell do you fit them in without affecting the performance like we did in the first half? That now, I think, is Mowbray's biggest challenge, about how he finds that formation and he finds that right balance. So we're going to move into players who maybe didn't play so well today. Glenn, is there anyone today that you were disappointed with, didn't have the greatest performance for you? Anyone you're thinking might need to swap them out for the Swansea game?
I haven't actually written anybody down here. I think it's quite difficult to single one player out today. I think there's a lot of players, I'll admit, they were 6 at best, especially in the first half. In terms of someone that was poor, more poor than anybody else, I'm struggling. I thought he wasn't poor, but Johnson was pretty ineffective in the first half. I'm not surprised he got hooked. I think Travis, I'm not going to say Travis had a poor game. I think his entire game changes when he's booked. I think in terms of talking about performance, you get Lewis Travis booked in the first half of the first half. He can't tackle. We saw a few times he's not putting his foot in. And I know that they said on commentary, it's a harsh booking, but we'd all be asking for him to be booked for what he did get booked for. I don't think there's any standout poor performers. I think, as I say, no people who'd be lucky to get a 6, quite a few of them.
Yeah. What you've described there, I call the Robbie Savage effect. So before we signed Robbie Savage, I was like, how the hell has this guy never been sent off? And then when he played for Rovers, I understood why, because it's exactly the same. Yeah. Does everything until he gets booked, and then you don't see the guy. And then the irony being that his only red card for Rovers, he probably shouldn't have been sent off. But Travis was the same. And when you're an all-action midfielder like that, it just completely nullifies you, doesn't it? So just touching on what what Glenn was saying there about Lewis Travis, Jacob Davenport is getting some airtime in the comments. What does he need to do to get a start? Simon Child. Were you impressed with Davenport when he came on and how he got his foot on the ball? I visibly noticed him demanding that ball, particularly when Stoke went down to 10 men. He wanted to be the man to start off those attacks. Were you impressed when he came on?
Yeah, I think I am always impressed by Davenport when he comes on. I don't think I've seen him put in a bad performance. The issue is it's always in fits and flashes, isn't it? Because he's only ever coming off the bench. I think has he started one game maybe for us, just the one. Obviously, he's been at the club for a while now, hampered by injuries, to be fair. But obviously, he got the Brentford goal, a slice of luck, still right place, right time, same as Buckley today. Came on today, demanded the ball, had a good cameo at Preston when we played them off the park. Yeah, he's just everything. He's that all action, but in the different way to Travis, if that makes sense. Travis all action. Yeah. He's there. We need someone to intercept the ball. He's there. Davenport's there to put the foot on the ball, always short the ball. And I really like him. Him and Holt did together today, I thought played very well. And I'd like to see him start. I don't know in what midfield three. I don't know who he comes in for. But there's no reason that he shouldn't be playing football in that starting 11. And I'm sure he's been banging on Mowbry's door asking, look, what have I got to do? Because whenever I come on, I stand out. And that's all you can ask of him.
The more I think about this Rovers side, and we've had all the debate in the world about how you fit Bradley Dack into the side, the more I think about it, and after today's performance in the first half in particular, I think we need a central midfield two as the core, whether it's Travis and Davenport, whether it's Johnson and Davenport, whether it's Johnson and Travis. I just think that has to be the basis in the central midfield area for us, and then we just need to think about what we do in front of that. Whether it's 4-2-3-1, whether it's 4-3-3, whether it's the box formation, Mowbray has to find the recipe beyond that. But I think you're right. Davenport is banging on the door. Travis will be back to what we know he is. Holtby's a class act on his day. Rothwell could probably push play in that deep position. We've got options there, and that for me is where Mowbray needs to start. So we're going to dissect the game in some detail then, chronologically, as we usually do. So, Joe, I'm going to start with you. We joked, didn't we, on the pre-match live stream that Stoke was 60 seconds away from beating their record for defensive clean sheets. And I think their approach to that was to absolutely go for us in the first couple of minutes. I was like, God, we haven't touched the ball yet. But actually, the pattern of play that quickly established itself, Stoke were on the front foot. They were getting forward possibly more than we thought. They looked really solid at the back. And as those average positions showed us, we were quite pinned in the first half and in some random locations. Well, how do you think Stoke started that game and how did Rovers start it?
I think Stoke will have been shocked at the way we started the game more than anything. I think you could see it from minute one. Nobody really knew where they were supposed to be. Rothwell ended up at left back and Douglas ended up in midfield for the first kind of 2 minutes because they didn't really know whose responsibility was who. And it was throw-ins today for me. From the first throw-in in the game, we just looked so unaware of where we needed to be. 3 or 4 players all pointing in different directions, all telling each other where they should be. And I think Stoke saw a huge weakness right at the start and thought, right, well, we'll get at them. The key thing that Stoke did, and it was pragmatism, and it's something we've never done, or at least not done for a very long time, is they take the ball to the corner and they bring 2 men out and they just play it against you and win a corner. And they did that 12 times today. All of their corners just came from taking it up the line, attempting a cross, probably getting blocked, corner ball, and we just can't do it. I mean, how many times did Nyambe take the ball down the byline and not cross the ball in today? Probably about 10 times. And if you give Stoke, with Harry Souttar at 6'6" or whatever he is, 6'7", you give Stoke 12 corners in a game or however many it was, they're going to put one in. Yes, Kaminski could have done better with the goal, but he then saved a really good header from the following corner. So that rules itself out. You can't give Stoke that many corners. We had to stop them in those corner areas. And I think for me, it was one of Nyambe's poorer games because he didn't stop those corners coming defensively and he didn't create those corners offensively for us by getting the ball in and making those attempts. So I think Stoke saw blood early on, saw that we were confused and didn't really know what we were doing. And then from there on out, I just don't think we responded well. I think Douglas and Branthwaite kind of, for that 5-minute period after the goal, crumbled a little bit and gave the ball away a few times. And I think if they'd have gone 2 or 3-0 up, it would have been game over.
Yeah, and this is coming through in the comments, what you've said there, Joe. So Eugene, our midfield is not settled and TM doesn't know what works and what combination. Ben the Boss Jackson, Rovers are just all over the place. We have too many players not knowing what they're doing. They just lost, no real system. that looked uncomfortable. We were just so poor first half. So certainly that confusion reigning through, in the comments there as well, Joe. So, Tom, I'm going to come to you. Football is a funny old game at times, and somewhat against the run of play. Rovers did have the ball in the back of the net. Good little breakaway. Joe Allen did his best to try and crop Joe Rothwell, but he got away from him, and Armstrong did time his run to perfection and put the ball in the net. So how different could this game be had we got the goal there at that point? And to avoid all doubt, we have got an image that we will bring up a bit later in the show. It was onside, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a mile on. It's fine margins, isn't it? That decision goes our way, then it's a different game, isn't it? I guess we can speculate as to what would have happened. I imagine Stoke come out a bit more. There's more space in behind. Because even though they attacked us, I still felt they were quite tight at the back. That was the only time, from my memory, that we were able to almost get beyond them. And that was because they'd been on from a corner or a throw-in, if I remember correctly. Douglas made a brilliant tackle, I think, and a good ball down the line. So it could have been a different game. And it's fair to say that it was a goal, like we said, and this podcast, I'm in my 1875, I'd say, this live stream could have been very different had that been the case. I guess then the question comes, VAR in the Championship, I don't want it, but then it frustrates you when you see positions where Armstrong's clearly onside and he's given off. I don't think we'd have done any better, to be honest with you. I don't think it would have changed it massively, if I'm being brutally honest with myself. Yes, it should have been a goal, but the performance wasn't the level that it should have been anyway, and I think that would have been breached.
I think you're right. The bit that you said about Stoke looking defensively solid, despite the fact they were coming out, I noticed that as well. And I do think that maybe Stoke might have, tried to come into the game a bit more and maybe had some success. But Glenn, there are a lot of stats, whether you're Mowbray in or Mowbray out or whatever, we can do that until the cows come home. But, the stats about this Rovers side, when they do get the first goal, and when they do get the first goal at home in the first half, which doesn't happen very often, largely we do go on to get positive results, don't we? So the officials have to have a good, hard look at themselves today with that. That could have made that game completely different, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it's no doubt he's onside. I mean, it's clear as day he's onside. I think at the time I was begging Rothwell to play the ball a bit sooner just to prevent that question being asked. Armstrong's got the pace. Play it a split second sooner when he's definitely onside. I mean, he was definitely onside anyway. But yeah, I'd like Tom said, I do feel the way Stoke played set pieces, it would have been a bombardment at the back for the next hour or so to try and keep them out anyway. So I don't think, if we score, obviously it changes the game, but I think it would have followed a similar pattern and we'd have been defending perhaps deeper and an aerial assault sort of thing. But I kind of made a note during the game, as daft as it sounds, we're a completely different team when we go a goal behind. It's like all confidence drains out of us. We run out of ideas. Even things like the counter-attack doesn't always work. It's strange. Like, one goal at home shouldn't change a game for us. We should still be in there. We should still be up against the team. We should still be pushing. And I don't know if that's a confidence thing or the way other teams set up. Because, I mean, Stoke didn't really sit back today. They didn't sit back and dig trenches. We just let them have the ball and pass it about, and we did nothing when we got it. In terms of VAR, I mean, if you think the offside for Armstrong's a bad decision, go have a look at the red card for Bournemouth, because that is absolutely horrendous. And it does need to be questioned. I feel, again, like I'm making excuses with the officials, but these are simple decisions that they're getting wrong, and there's no consequence for it to them. And I can't remember the last time we had a penalty. I don't think we deserve one today, but it's the same sort of thing. I'm fed up of watching a game where we're breaking. This is a bit of a rant here. We're breaking. There's a foul. The referee blows the whistle, and then John Obi Mikel boots the ball 20 yards away, and there's no booking. And it's like, that's another minute gone off the clock. It's the little things like, I'm going to go down and hold my head, but I've actually pulled my hamstring just so he stops the clock. But
on that note, Glenn, on that note, I put a thing out on the Rovers Analytics account. A minute 43 of added time was actually in play. 5 minutes given. The ball was in play for a minute 43. And then the referee had the audacity not just to not add added time onto the added time. He blew on 4 minutes 59. I was absolutely disgusted with that. I think they don't just allow the time wasting; they encourage it. They absolutely pamper to whatever they need. I mean, Powell went down 3 different times. He was off the pitch to start with. Why is the referee not going over there and saying, "You're already off. If you need somebody, stay off"?
The same light,
He
Joe.
was like stopping play for cramp, wasn't he, as well? Instead of a head injury for cramp. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
It's true, but in the same light, I'm sure that we've done it in the past. I know it doesn't make it right, but I guess it's the dark arts that Warren Lucy often talks about in his commentary on iFollow. I guess we benefit from it as much as we don't benefit from it. So it's a tough one, isn't it? I think we could talk on either referees, couldn't we?
It's the referee's job to stop it. So if we're doing it, book someone and it stops. And it's when you let people get away with it, it then fosters and you end up with a minute of extra time out of the 5 minutes. And it's just a little thing. It doesn't change. I don't think it changes the game today. Obviously, the goal might change that, but it's frustrating, especially when you're behind and you're trying to get a bit of momentum. There's a clear foul. He books the play. We try to take a quick free kick. Oh no, drag it back. And it's just everything kind of just frustrating.
Just what you were saying, Glenn, about, we are a completely different side when we go behind. So we've got a stat here from Leap Year Man. We've conceded first in 8 of the last 9, a big issue for us. And then Newman Alley, we're having an identity crisis. We can't be both a possession side and a counter-attacking. It needs to be one or the other. I think a big missing ingredient for this Rovers side at the moment, and I think it's why it's coming through in the comments and some of the criticisms, is I don't know who is the leader in our side. I don't know if Mowbry is the one putting a rocket up arses at halftime. I don't know who is the one driving the standards and demanding more from their players and their colleagues. I don't know who that is on the pitch at the moment. And I said it on the pre-stream. I'd love Bradley Dack to be that person. I really would. Now he's got this new contract. Now he's clearly the main man. Now he is the big dog. Can he be that man? But I think there's a little bit of that missing from this side, that when we do go a goal down, hey, up, don't worry, we're going to come from behind. Look at those successful Man United sides. You know, they went 1-0 down on numerous occasions. But you know for sure that the likes of Roy Keane are going to be saying, hey, let's sort this out. Who's the one doing that for Rovers? And I think that we can talk possession, we can talk Mowbray, we can talk formations, whatever. That, for me, is a core missing ingredient of this side at the moment. And in the comments, let me know who you think is that Rovers player who's doing that. But I just don't see it. I think they're too much of a cohort, a friendship group, lads in the changing room. I'm not sure who's the one who is being Roy Keane and causing controversy and causing problems. Not sure. But Joe, just after my little side rant there, let's avoid all doubt here. It was a terrible first half performance, and we did really well to go in just 1-0 down, didn't we? We'll talk about the goal first, and then we'll just come on to the other chances that Stoke had. It was terrible marking, wasn't it, for the Nick Powell goal? Who's picking up Nick Powell? Ryan Nyambe. He's let him go, and it's, albeit it's from a corner, but it's a carbon copy of the goal we conceded last time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a frustrating one because he nods it in from about 2 yards and you want your goalkeeper to come and claim that, really. And I'm not going to sit here and slate Kaminski because he saved us on the corner after. Yeah, the marking wasn't great, but Powell and Nyambe is a mismatch anyway. I think if Nyambe is right underneath him, he wins that header. Kaminski's probably got to come and claim that. But like Glenn's already alluded to, a goal from a corner like that shouldn't be the end of the world. If you think back to like when we played Peterborough in League One and Mulgrew put it in our own net and we're 1-0 down and we had a really shaky first half and we could have been 2 or 3-0 down and we went on to, win the game not easily, but, we went on and won that game and played good football and 1 goal wasn't the end of the world. And that spirit, that League One spirit just isn't there anymore. And I think as much as you get the technical ability from players like Harvey Elliott and Lewis Holtby and John Buckley, they do lack what perhaps a Jacob Davenport or a Lewis Travis bring, which is some urgency and some combativeness. And I think perhaps as much as Bradley Johnson didn't have a great first half, I wonder whether Travis would have been better going off than Johnson, given the way they both played.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom, I'm going to give you the final word on the game before we, nod to the next game, which is Swansea City and some of the things that we might need to do. Let's just reflect on the fact we have got a point. We've got a point where we've not necessarily played well. To coin that Mowbray phrase, it's another point in the bag. So we kind of just hang in and around there, don't we? With how we've played today, we've come from behind to get a draw. We've got to be happy enough with that, haven't we? It's not like we've played really well and then Stoke have nicked one. It's the reverse today.
I think that's even more frustrating, though. If you play well on a team nicks one, you can say, you know what, on another day, like we did at the start of the season against like Bournemouth and Watford, if you play like that every single week, we're going to win more than we lose. We can't say that anymore. We've not been able to say that for the past couple of months. But you put the point in the bag, you move on, and you hope that the next game is much better. And I guess as long as we're clinging on for dear life to those that are in the top 6, there's always that slim chance that you go on some ridiculous run in the way that Villa did a few years ago and find ourselves in the playoffs. Just as a side comment to what you said before, Ryan, he's not good enough to start, but I think Elliot Bennett brought that. I'm not suggesting he should have played him, but he was a sort of player that came in and sort of, I think, kicked everyone into gear. I agree with Joe as well. We lack that, the likes of Buckley. Great technical player, but perhaps needs to learn the other side of the game as well. And we do miss that at the moment, I would say.
I'm going to ask, it's just come to my head, it might just be a completely random question, but again, I've said this before on streams, and I think about the sides that have gone up with the tight-knit squads that you can rely on and just invest in, a core of 15, 16, 17 players who are your ones. Glenn, I'm going to ask a weird question here. Do you think Mowbray, particularly in front of defence, obviously defensively we've been short this season, do you think he's got too many players and too many people to try and fit in, and we might actually benefit from a smaller squad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got so many options there, and then you throw Travis and Dak in there with the need to get them back in somewhere because there are influential players, and I think he has got too many options. You've got Corey Evans, Elliot Bennett, you've got all these players that you think when they're all fit, who plays? Does he know who plays? And if he doesn't know who plays, does he change his team for every opponent? And is that a good thing? Because consistency is what we want. I mean, I think in a way he was pushed into a corner with Travis, I think, today after the Birmingham game because of how successful it was. But perhaps it was Davenport that should have started, not Travis, after that game. And that's where we struggled. He's got a lot of options. He loves a midfielder, does Mowbray. I feel as though we've no money, but he'll still go find a midfielder somewhere to bring in. And we don't need more midfielders. We've got enough midfielders. And they're not players that they're not versatile. So we're not bringing midfielders in who can play right back or left wing or right wing or centre half as such. They're just midfielders. And we've got loads of them. It baffles me. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. We've got too many options in midfield.
Yeah, I just thought of that just as we were talking about all these different players and systems and stuff. And then I think back to Leeds last season and the core of players that they used. It must have been just 16 or so players that they could rely on. That said, you have got to have your luck with injuries and you have got to get a settled defence. So that instantly does undermine Rovers and that point that I'm making there. But I do just wonder, just would he have more joy with less options? So before we go on to the Swansea game then, Tom, I'm just going to read a couple of things that Mowbray has said after the game here. So he said, I could have made 5 changes at half-time, such was the performance levels. I see Dak in training every day, and going on the evidence of the game, we played against them a month ago. It was a game for Dak to start, in my opinion. So that's probably the stuff that I was saying pre-stream, that you want your Bradley Dak on the pitch to go and win you the game 1-0. That's what he's alluding to there. And then I can't disagree. It was really poor. The calculation I have is trying to give some game time to our best players to help them get fit, but also maintain the competitiveness of the team. So, Glenn, that's going into that point about all these players that he's got. He's trying to do all these calculations that, Dolan needs that much and Brereton needs that much and Dak needs this much. It might just be starting to overcomplicate things for Mowbray there.
I think just on Dak, just to jump in there, I think I said a couple of weeks ago, I'd rather him start because he was coming into games like, I can't remember which game it was now, but after an hour and expected to change the game. I think it was Huddersfield, and he was you didn't notice him, he did nothing because he's trying to do too much and not getting enough of the ball, and starting him was the way to do it, but not changing the formation for him, in my opinion. I said a couple of weeks ago when we were in that League One season, it seemed like beginning of the season he was trying to fit Dak in wherever he could, just because he's obviously a quality player. And I feel we're kind of back to that position again of he doesn't really fit this system that we're playing, but we're going to play him because he's good. I just hope that he does fit in sooner rather than later. I think in terms of, I think we need another striker. I mean, even if Armstrong doesn't go anywhere, we need another striker. Today, that pitch is just a different option. I thought it was Gallagher. Gallagher came on and he got put out on the wing, and then he took Gallagher off, put Brereton on, and Brereton was through the middle. It didn't seem to add up to me. Personally, we've brought Branthwaite in. Yes, we could do with another defender, but I'd seriously looking for a big hulk of a striker we can stick up front and just get the ball off. Let him, like Danny Graham used to do to a degree, kind of get Dak playing off him to an extent.
Yeah. So two things before we nod to the Swansea game then, just to pick up people's comments just from some of that discussion. So Alexander Haben, we need a Roy Keane type. Eugene Shee, we are a nice team with talented players but aren't clinical enough and definitely aren't rough enough to win balls, etc. We are reflecting TM's posture as he sits slumped. Gary H, we're missing that midfield general with experience, drive and winning mentality to guide the younger members of the team. Ollie James, that's the problem. We have no leaders. It's a big problem, as discussed the other day. Travis is the man for me, but you can see your point about Dak. The only other leader on the pitch is Ayala. Interesting perspective from Stoke City. So a Stoke fan site here have said that it was disappointing for them. They were the better team for 60 minutes. Bizarre subs from Michael O'Neill, and our goal was coming. Ben the boss, just in terms of that discussion about all the options we've got. We bought too many midfielders and had for so long 4-5-1, 4-3-1-1, and now we're constantly 4-3-3. To me, it's putting square pegs in round holes. Go back to basics. Christopher Knowles, too many similar players for me. Not enough change to the system or plan. And then Michael Pearson, Mowbry has shown by his quotes, he's getting muddled by all the options and can't keep everyone happy. And then Andy Watson just sneaking in there with a comment. He spent the whole year trying to get away from that system of playing a hold-up man and Dak off him. Yeah, and I think so, Andy. I think now Dak has created him no end of problems because I'm not convinced that 4-3-3 is the system for Dak. And how does he solve that? And 4-3-3 we've had some great joy with, and we've seen the likes of Ben Brereton really flourish in that 4-3-3. And then Glenn, agreement with you, Alexander Haben, we need another striker, maybe give McBride a chance also. Leap year man, we have bought Brio and Gallia strikers, but not playing them. We need a plan B striker, so agreement with you there. So before we nod to the Swansea game, I did promise you an image of the Adam Armstrong offside, so I think Dan can bring it up for me now. Let's have a look. I think he can bring it. There we go. So for those of you that haven't seen it, let's just have a look at that. The ball has already been played in that still, as you can see. So that pass has already been played by Rothwell. He's clearly onside. So disappointing for Rovers. But yeah, we're not going to focus on that too much. But that first goal potentially does change the game. So the very tedious segue, Tom, that I'm going to do to the Swansea game is Tony Mowbry's comments about the pitch. So Mowbray has said after the game, I probably shouldn't get into that. I don't want to criticise the ground staff who work so hard, but that people know my thoughts on it. We're looking to source a new pitch. So it is Swansea City on Tuesday night, I think, isn't it? And Swansea are a team that also like to play football like Rovers do. The old adage goes that the pitch is same for both sides, and Stoke had some joy today on our pitch. Do you see this pitch affecting the game, firstly, on Tuesday night against Swansea, because we both like to play the ball, and with 3 home games in 4 this month for Rovers, could this become more and more of a problem for us, particularly if Mowbray wants to play this possession-based football?
On the current pitch, yeah. There's no other answer, really. It's terrible. I don't know who's responsible for it. I don't know if it's a decision made due to finances, but with that pitch, no one can play football. It's going to be a very bitty game, I think, on Tuesday. It's going to be a lot of there was a couple of times where Elliott, I think, expected the ball to go further than it did, that I noticed, especially with Nyamdi. He almost passed it or let it roll, but it got caught up on the turf and didn't travel like it needed to. So that's why possession was lost half of the time. just because the passes weren't reaching it. It's the sort of thing like when you're in a Sunday league and the grass is a bit long, you say you need to get real welly today, lads, because this grass is going to hold up. It was exactly like that, and that's not good enough. This is professional football. More needs to be done with regards to the pitch. It is going to have an impact on the Swansea game. I can see, like I said, it's been a bitty game. I know in the chat we were talking a lot of diagonal balls. I imagine it's going to be an interesting game because I'm not convinced that you can play football on that pitch. I'm not convinced that Swansea or Rovers can play football any other way, especially judging off today's performance. So I imagine it's going to be a 0-0 draw. Just no one can score, no one can do anything. Passes left, right, and centre. That 1 minute 37 comment that Joe mentioned in 5 minutes of added time, that could be for the full 90 minutes. So yeah, it's not good, is it? That pitch needs work doing.
Yeah, and just picking up some comments before I come to you, Glenn. Ben the Boss Jackson, we used to have the best pitch in the Prem and Championship. It's got to be some kind of financial cutback. Who knows? I think the training on it during the recent wet weather certainly hasn't helped Ben, but possibly the financial
got
side.
Indoor pitches as well, so why couldn't they train on them? I think to train on Ewood, knowing that it was so bad, is, to me, baffling. Perhaps I'm trying to make that easier than what it is. But it was an interesting decision.
I think the indoor pitch thing is a COVID thing. I'm sure they couldn't train indoors because of the COVID requirements. So I think Brockhall, I read somewhere, was frozen. They couldn't train indoors because of Brockhall. Because of COVID. So they went to Ewood. But go to Plessy, go to like Quegg.
Yeah, it's true. Go
There's
Plessy,
a lot of football pitches.
Yeah, Plessy's pitches aren't that bad. Never get a game called off there. So,
and the other comment that we've had here from Leap Year Man, which will segue me nicely into my comment to you, Glenn. So Swansea are the type of team that adapt. They'll have a plan B. They have proven to be an efficient side. Now, Glenn, I'm no, horticulturist or groundsman or whatever. You know, if you're relaying a pitch in winter and in the northwest in Blackburn where it's going to rain, are we all of a sudden going to get this perfect playing surface when we've resurfaced it? I'm not sure. So, like Leap Year Man's comments there about adapting, is now the time. Let's reflect on the Doncaster performance. Let's reflect on the performance today. Is now the time for Mowbray to seriously pursue a plan B and a change of formation?
Yeah, I think I'll come back to Andy's comment earlier about we're spending a whole year trying to get away from the system and the hold-up man and Dak off him. I'm not saying let's move away from this 4-3-3 completely. I'm saying until we get a pitch we can pass the ball on, let's have a plan B. Let's go out in the market. Let's get a lone striker, a freebie, a Gusted type, a battering ram that we've missed it all season. We've missed the plan B. The pitch, I think, is pushing us down that route. And I'll be the first one to say I hate Allardyce football of hoofball and horses for courses at the minute, though. With that pitch, I think Swansea relayed theirs between Christmas and New Year, didn't they? So theirs is looking fine now. Theirs was worse than ours is now. I remember in the game before they relayed it. But it's not conducive to the way we play football at all. It's a problem, and I can sense Mowbray's frustrations in his post-match conference. But yeah, I think now is the time to maybe look at, do we have a plan B? I think a plan B in the past has been same system, different players in terms of Elliott, Dolan, Rothwell, Brereton. I think now we need a definite, how do we stop passing the ball through the middle of the pitch? There's a time in the second half, I think, it was the time when Niambe kicked it off the Stoke player back at himself and it went out for a goal kick. And I thought, Ryan, you've got some grass, run into it. Off you go. This is the time. Use the green grass.
I was just looking at the fixtures there to see when we might relay this pitch. So we've got an 11-day gap between the Swansea game and the Luton game. Is that a window? Then between Luton and Preston is a 2-week gap. And then what's that? 11-day gap between Preston and Watford. So it's probably, the end of the month we're looking at relaying this pitch probably with the gap in games. Tom, where do you stand on this? Because the thing that I have comforted myself with this season, and I've said on these streams, is I've been stood on those away terraces and I've seen us with no possession and I've seen us with no shots. And this season, I've comforted myself with the fact that we have looked comfortable on the ball. We have popped it about nicely. We have at times been pretty fluid, if not clinical. Now that side of things is gone, with the pitch clearly impacting on our style of play. Do you think we need to change it up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not totally against the formation, the way that we played last season anyway. I understand why we got rid of Danny Graham. I think he'd have been a useful person to have around the club, though. I know he's done nothing for Sunderland, to be fair, so I'm probably talking on my backside here. But he would offer that plan B. Do you remember Peter Crouch coming on for Stoke against us a few years ago, 3-0 up coasting? He came on. All of a sudden, their star player changes, lump it up to the big man. It's a different game. I agree with Glenn. That plan B is needed. If only just to throw caution to the wind. If only just to say in the last 20 minutes when you're chasing a goal or chasing an equaliser or chasing a winner, you say, right, on you go, just make that ball stick. He tried playing Dak today in a formation that didn't suit him, but he thought would suit him, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you got Armstrong there as that lone man who's never going to hold the ball up because he's not that type of player. Trying to almost have Armstrong play off Dak. So Dak is just nothing. Dak's best when he's running onto those balls. And it'd be a good plan B to have, having that man to lump it up to. At the moment, we don't have it. Gallagher could do it, but doesn't seem to win enough headers. And whilst the pitch is as it is, there's got to be something. Something's got to give. Something has got to give. And I think having a plan B would be my go-to solution anyway for now.
I said in our group chat, I'm a little bit older than you, Tom. What we have got with Rovers now just absolutely reminds me of England and this golden generation. We were just trying to get Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard into the same midfield and trying to play the best 11 players in England and not actually flip it on its head and go, right, what's the system that I think is going to win us football games and who are the best players for that system? Because probably what you would have ended up with is one of Scholes, Gerrard or Lampard on the bench had you used that mentality. And I think Mowbry's just got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and stop worrying about players keeping players happy, stop worrying about all these calculations and go for the system that works. But I don't think he'll do that because I think Mowbry as a manager and what he's built at Rovers and what his modus operandi is he's all about the harmony in the squad. And you see it. That's why we have these Rovers store videos advertising the products. That's why we have the good banter on Instagram that we see with the players. That's Mowbry's style of management. So I just don't see that change. And I think he's still going to... Sorry, carry on.
No, so it's just we've seen before. I was disagreeing with what you're saying. When he was at Middlesbrough, they got promoted a couple of seasons after he left. And a lot of the nucleus of that squad was the same as when he'd left. It's just that when he left... there seemed to be that identity that Karanka managed to bring in. And I hope something similar doesn't happen. I hope he can turn it around. But I agree with you in saying that you've got the harmony, but he needs to find one way of playing rather than just throwing players on and saying, go and play.
Yeah, and the right system might mean that Dak's on the bench or Rothwell's on the bench or Travis is on the bench. And that's the difficult decision. And as I say, Sven-Göran Eriksson found out the hard way, didn't he, with England with that, because he never benched any of them and arguably put Paul Scholes on the left wing, which was probably the worst decision he could have made. Glenn, sorry, you were trying to come in.
I was just going to say that there's an element of catch-22 at the minute as well with Mowbray. You need that kind of consistency of sticking players in positions and sticking with it. But I get the feeling that we've drawn today, we've not played as well as we should have done. It'll be starting again next week. It'll be a different midfield three. And I think there's an element of kind of like Championship manager, for example. I'm not winning with that system. I'll change it next week. Or that hasn't won. I'll change it again until he finds something that does win. But then the irony is he did at Birmingham and then took Davenport out, despite the fact I didn't see the game, but rave reviews about him. I just think that pick a team, pick a system, stick to it for 3 games. If you're confident, like he says, that I saw Bradley in training, I thought he'd be brilliant against this Stoke side today. You're a football manager with a lot of games under your belt. Trust your conviction. Stick with it for a few weeks. Let's have 3 games of the same 11. I mean, we've moaned about injuries for the first probably season up until now, haven't we, in terms of Travis, Dak, Williams, etc. He's got that squad today who's all fit apart from Gallagher, who apparently has a back spasm that's ongoing. stick with it. Stick with Dak in that formation. You're only going to get better if you keep playing that team and that system, and you get familiar with it.
I agree. It's consistency. I can still name, the Leeds side from last season. I can still name the Burnley side that got promoted. I can still name these of us, Villa that got promoted. You can name them. Who could name our side looking in at Rovers? You've got to get that consistency, haven't you, Glenn? Well, we've reached the hour, or gone beyond the hour mark, lads. So I'll just pick up a couple of comments that we've had before closing off. So Callum Robinson, what is Rudy Gestead doing these days? I think he's with Steve Keane in Australia, isn't he? Yeah.
Don't mention that name.
El Scotty picking that up. Gestead is in Australia, I think. I think he is. I think he's at Melbourne Victory. So sadly, we're not going to be getting Big Rudy, I'm afraid. And then Michael Pearson, time for Ainsworth. You've segued me really nicely, Michael. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter, various people that follow Rovers, various accounts, whatever. And I'm not going to sit here and say that Mowbray in, Mowbray out, whatever. Mowbray's playing amazing football. Mowbray's going to get us into the Premier League. But one thing that we will always do on this channel, and I think it's really important that we remember this, we'll always be respectful to Mowbray. So if we think that Mowbray's time is up at Rovers, we will do that in a way which is evidence-based and weighs it up rationally, rather than disrespecting the man and disrespecting him as a person. Because I think one thing that every Rovers fan can agree on is that Tony Mowbray, as a manager, wants the best for Blackburn Rovers Football Club. And Tony Mowbray, as a man, will never disrespect a Blackburn Rovers fan to their face, like some of the other managers have done that we've had over the years. Tom's just referenced one of them. So I think we all owe it as Rovers fans to be respectful to Tony Mowbray. Yes, we might end up in mid-table. Yes, we might not get promoted. Yes, it might just be tappy, not very efficient football. But he deserves a bit of respect, and the respect we will give him on this channel is that we will weigh up the arguments rationally and give everyone their say. So I don't think it's the time for Ainsworth just yet, Michael. For the reasons that I've said, I think we need to address other big issues first. But once we are past those issues, once contracts are signed, we know what's happened with Armour. If it feels right to get rid of Mowbray at that time, then, that's probably something that I will agree with. But again, we will do it in a way that is respectful to him. So Glenn, Tom, thank you for joining us tonight. And we lost Joe halfway through that. So hopefully Joe's all right. But we went from a fantastic four into a dynamic trio. But thanks for joining us. Tom, you have a good evening tonight, mate.
Shall do. Thank you very much. You too, Ryan. And all the listeners as well. Have a cracking evening.
That's right. And Glenn, you have a good evening as well, mate.
Cheers. I'm waiting up for the Packers game later, so I'm going to suffer through that later with the American football. So it's a long day.
Excellent. And all of our viewers who have joined us tonight, it's been so good to be back with you all. I did on the other side last night, and it was great to see some of the familiar names. And we've had more of you today. So thank you for your interactions. I've said it before. We absolutely love doing this. And whilst we're in a lockdown, whilst we can't go to the stadium, this is our way of interacting and following Blackburn Rovers. So I love it. Win, lose or draw. I love just chewing the fat over Blackburn Rovers. So thank you for joining us. We will be back. I'll be back on Monday with On the Other Side for the Swansea game. And then we'll be back on Tuesday with our pre and post-match live streams as we usually do for the Swansea game. Hey,
I just need to plug myself. So obviously on Tuesday,
yes, please do.
We're interviewing Craig Conway for the 1875 podcast. Not too sure when the pod's going to be released yet, but obviously really looking forward to it. So keep your eye on all the social media channels, Rovers Chat, 1875 podcast, Twitter channel. And yeah, it's going to be a good interview, I hope. Any questions anyone's got, leave them with the Rovers Chat Twitter, because we're going to put them towards him. And hopefully get a good scoop on Rovers sides of old and the current Rovers lot.
Very good plug, that, Tom. I'm very sorry that I didn't plug that, but no, I am very, very jealous of you. So Craig Conway is one of my favourite recent players, and again, gave it all for Rovers. So you enjoy that interview, and yeah, Rovers fans, get those questions to Rovers Chat so that Tom can pose them to Craig Conway. So all of our viewers who have watched this evening, have a good rest of your evening, or if you are dizzy thumbs, I don't know what time it is where you are, so whatever you're about to do over in Australia, Enjoy yourselves. And yeah, we will be back with our live streams on Monday for On the Other Side and pre-match on Tuesday before Swansea. Have a good rest of your Saturday evening, and we will leave you with our sponsor message. See you all.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 6yardsout.com. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.